husband loving me, and he found a lump, and he's a physician, and he didn't want to alarm me, but I also didn't want to ignore it. So he found it, without looking for it. He just found it, and it was a left-sided tumor.
Susan, a 50-year-old mother of two from Austin, had been enjoying her life carefree with her husband, who happened to be a physician. She had been following her passion for scuba diving worldwide with her husband, who was fond of underwater photography. She had no idea of the manifestation that was taking place in her body until her husband pointed it out for the first time. Susan's husband, who was a physician, felt the presence of a hard, pea-sized lump in her left breast. He informed her about it and told her to feel it herself. And after she did, she freaked out about it. Without delaying the consequences, Susan scheduled a fine needle aspiration, and the surgeon took 3 samples for the testing. The report came back negative, and the surgeon suggested that it was not cancer, but he told her that the lump might have to be taken out. Susan, believing the doctor, took her condition lightly and went on a vacation to Australia, from where she returned after 3 weeks. While she was gone, her mother, who was taking care of her children, got a call from the hospital asking about the appointment of Susan's surgery. Her mother was shocked by this.
They got a report back and they said, "No problem, you don't have any cancer." And then he said, "But we might as well take that thing out." So we go to Australia. We're gone for 3 weeks. We come back. My mom is staying here with the kids, and she gets this call from the hospital. So we just wanted to talk to Susan about her surgery that's scheduled in a few days. And my mother's like, "What surgery?"
As the hospital had told them that everything was normal. So after returning, Susan went to the hospital and had her surgery, and after sending the removed part to pathology, it was confirmed that it was cancer. Susan's doctor, who did her fine needle aspiration, had misinterpreted the diagnosis 3 times, leading to such a situation. Hell broke upon her after hearing the news of cancer, but her husband, being a calm and collected physician, inquired about her whole condition, narrowing down the possible path to be taken next. Then Susan, accompanied by her husband, went to MD Anderson in Houston for her lumpectomy, and all 5 lymph nodes that were tested came out negative. Despite this great news, she was still not able to forget her first encounter with her surgeon, when she was really happy to hear that it was not cancer, as the happiness she got back then was unmatchable. The MD Anderson surgeons took out another whole section from the spot where she had her fine needle aspiration for sentinel node biopsy. Susan's doctor told her about the sentinel node biopsy and how they were going to put a dye in the tumor spot and observe it. She did not find it difficult at all while having the surgery or her recovery before meeting with her oncologist. Susan then met with the oncologist, who attended to her for 2 hours in her first sitting, explaining everything, recommending chemotherapy and radiation, and providing her with 2 choices. He asked her whether she wanted to go with adriamycin, the red devil that causes some serious side effects like nausea, vomiting, and complete hair loss, or another mixture of different drugs that would cost her 1/3 of her hair. Susan's husband researched this and helped her choose the right drug. The only thing that Susan had was good support behind her in the form of her husband, who overlooked her whole procedure, researching even the tiniest bits of details. So with her husband's support, Susan agreed to her chemotherapy, selecting the latter option. They also gave her a cream to protect her from sunburn, as radiation was harmful to her, and it worked for her. However, chemotherapy proved quite difficult for Susan, as there were 6 treatments scheduled 3 weeks apart, and it was just IV. Her hair started falling, and she was furious with her cancer. Then came the point where she completely broke apart. It was after her 4th appointment when the doctors forgot to give her anti-nausea drugs, due to which Susan remained sick all night, unprotected from the chemo, and then she became miserable enough to blurt it out that she was not going for the next treatment. It was painful for Susan, as the doctors injected the drugs, so Susan said to her husband that she was not going back. Her husband did not deny her, nor did he force his opinion, but remained calm and neutral, supporting her and letting her muster the strength on her own. It eventually worked, and Susan got through the 5th and 6th treatments bravely. After her chemotherapy, Susan opted for MD Anderson once again for the mammograms, where she felt the most comfortable. Fortunately, All her tests came back negative, and it continued to do so for the next 10 years, which finally led Susan to realize that she was cancer-free. Susan was so happy that she even threw a 10 years of cancer-free anniversary party for her friends and family. All went well for Susan for the next 10 years as well, till the long-parted guest once again made its way into Susan's body. It was the year 2021 when Susan felt that her nipple looked twisted and caved in, raising a red flag once more. She rushed to her doctor and was checked up by a nurse practitioner who showed extreme concern for Susan and asked her to get a mammogram and a biopsy as soon as possible. Susan went for her biopsy and mammogram the same day, and the biopsy proved to be painful for her. But what proved to be painful for her was the existence of another cancer, a different one than the last one, as it was estrogen positive and progesterone positive. Although it was a relief that the previous cancer had not survived and prolonged its stay for 20 years, it was also painful that there was another one that was going to be painful as well. And she was thinking that nothing worse could hit her than this. Another cancer came out positive in her right breast from the lab tests, which went unnoticed in the mammogram. Shockingly, it was completely different from the cancer that had existed 20 years before, or the one that existed 20 years after, making it a third cancer to inhabit Susan's body. Susan did not want to lose her breasts after the reconstruction surgery, so she opted for the aesthetic flat closure, without even seeing the pictures of the aftermath of both surgeries. It was probably a mistake because Susan got through her surgery, and when she took off the bandages, she found out that the doctors had removed her nipples because the cancer existed there, which made her feel bad for a long time. Susan this time did not go for the chemotherapy, but decided to go for a deep brain stimulation surgery because she was not only fighting cancer but also had been fighting Parkinson's disease for more than 6 years. So for the brain surgery, she had to shave her head, along with the cancer treatment that took her chest away from her, both of which are an important identity of the feminine gender. Although Susan had a lot to mourn, she had a lot to thank for, as she fought such terminal illnesses bravely and made it out in the best shape possible. As we conclude Susan's story, we have come to learn that a sick person needs emotional support, and how effective your emotional support can be towards those who are fighting for their lives. Despite fighting for her life, she remained steady because of endless support from her family, doctors, and especially her husband. Life is never too easy for anyone, and it can hit you with way worse situations than you are already in. So always be thankful for your present and strive to maintain a healthier you for a healthier future.